Hello and welcome back to my channel. First of all, for this tutorial, I would like to say thank you to all of my new subscribers. I actually have gone past 100 this week, and that has just melted my heart. I never thought that when I started this channel that it would start to grow this fast. So thank you, and I hope that you'll continue to come back and see what we have in the new tutorials. So let's talk about the tutorial for tonight. I am going to walk you through step by step how to make your own little fabric gift tags and add a little bit of embroidery. So you can easily cut out a rectangle and then cut off the edges as well as a circle. And these can be your patterns for your actual tags that you're going to make. So gather some supplies and some fabrics that you'd like to use, and let's go make a gift tag. So starting with your patterns, this circle that I've cut is a 4-inch circle, and the rectangle I started with was a 3 by 5 inch. So if you just cut out a perfect rectangle, you can just measure in and just diagonally cut off the amount that you want to cut so that you can make it look like a gift tag. The next thing you're going to want is whatever fabrics of your choice. I recommend that you start with an oversized square and then cut out your shapes. But when you get done, you will cut them out to look like your pattern. You're going to want one for the front. You're also going to want something that would coordinate the back. And then you will do the same for a circle as well as a coordinating back. So once you decide on your size and your shapes, then you're just going to cut everything out. And there are a few other things that you're going to do for this project. You are going to want some embroidery thread if you would like to do embroidery. I'm going to show you that this strand, when you pull it, is actually 6 pieces. So you can separate out a single strand, you can separate out 2 strands just by pulling it apart, or you can do 3 or 4. It's up to you how many strands you want to use based on the thickness of the project. Now, if you are starting with a larger square piece of fabric, you will want to just put it on a hoop and then measure where you want the design to fit on the pattern so that you know exactly how much space you're going to need to leave in the hoop. Now, I have cut out just some examples of some things that you can do. So, for example, I can do a full snowman or a face of a snowman, or you can do the names on the gift tags. And I pulled these just from images or from text that I just typed out on the computer. And so you can see that when I made these, I made sure the length would fit the gift tag, or that the circle would actually cover the center of whatever design. So you have options on how you want to go about that. Now, there are a couple of ways to do this to get this onto your fabric. The first thing that you can do is take a piece of paper when you've printed it and just take your fabric that you want to use. I just pulled a scrap, and take some type of fabric marker or pen and literally trace that design onto the piece of fabric. Now again, you're going to want a square that will hold this. So I would probably say do a 6-inch square or a bigger rectangle so that when you put it in a hoop, you have room. But you can trace the names onto the fabric. You could also trace the design that you want onto the fabric. But there's also a product out there that is called Sticky Wash Away Stabilizer. And this is something that I recently have discovered, and I absolutely prefer this. But if I am in a pinch and I need to handwrite something and I don't have time, this is a great way to do it. This is actually printable. And the way this works is just like I printed this sheet. You can actually run the stabilizer through the printer and it will automatically print the same design on the stabilizer. And then you just cut this out, and you can actually peel it and stick it to the fabric directly, and you stitch straight through it. So these are a couple of options for how you can get your designs ready. Now, this is a thick canvas piece of fabric that I have put this on. So I did not even put this on a hoop because this is so thick. But if you're going to use something like cotton, then you are definitely going to need a hoop, an actual hoop to pull it tight so that while you're stitching, you don't get any of that loose edge in the fabric that will keep your threads from being tight. So those are your options and some ways that you can utilize that to make your project. So I am going to come back and show you how to actually do a simple stitch and how to start this project. If you are planning to use cotton, I do recommend that you have a stabilizer if you are not going to be doing the wash away. You can just get something like the Sulky brand, just a lightweight tearaway stabilizer that you can put behind your cotton if you're going to be tracing it on, because you do want something with thin cotton to stabilize it if you're not using the wash away. So let's talk about how to do the stitches. So I always come in from the very bottom and just pick a place to start. So I'm going to just start with the ribbon of this one. I have a knot tied, and I have 2 strands, and then I've looped it through to make a total of 4 strands. So I'm just going to pull through. Your knot's going to catch. I'm going to just make a small stitch and go in. And then we're going to do what's called a back stitch. So just come about that same length out away from the stitch that you just created. Come back up. And now you're going to loop into the one that you just made. And you're just going to continue to do that. So just come out about the same length. And then go in where you made the previous stitch. And you're just going to continue to follow the lines that you've traced, trying to keep them about the same distance apart. And you're just going to continue to follow whatever your pattern is, whatever direction you're going. And I usually try to just stay in a line so that I don't have a lot of threads on the back that are going to crisscross each other, because I don't really want that to show through whenever I have another piece of fabric behind it. So I would just recommend just following the path until you finish. So that is going to bring this to a finished end. And when your thread starts to get kind of short and you know that you're about to run out of room, I would say go ahead before you can't get it back in there. See how tight this is getting. Make your last stitch and then go ahead and tie it off and go ahead and start a new strand. And the way that I do that is I will just go back up under a couple of stitches that I created, and I will just try to loop it back in that piece of thread and kind of just make myself a little knot and kind of pull it. And I'll do that a couple of times, and then I'll just cut that piece off so that my needle is free. And once you get that done, the other nifty little thing that I want to show you guys you can do to just add some depth is you can actually use fine tip markers for fabric. This is just a pack I picked up at Michael's several months ago just to do for a different project, and it just adds something with your stitches. You can just go into the fabric and just actually color it in either before you start or when you finish, and it's going to blend in with your stitches and give you some dimension And all you have to do is do it like you would if you were going to color in the lines. You're just going to color in between your stitches. So you could color it beforehand and then outline all of the areas, or you could just go ahead and do your stitch and then color. So I just want to show you guys that this is a neat way for you to just add some character and some creativity to your projects. With this one, I did that already. So I just stitched everything in red, and then I just went in and colored in areas of the box I wanted green, and then I went back in between the bow and made it red. I also here quilted a little stitch across the tag. So this is just another little idea and a little tip for you. Notice it will run, so I do recommend that if you do this, that you'll want something up under it if it's off the hoop. And also just make sure that you don't get close to your stitches. I'm at an odd angle trying to film for you, so this is just running a little bit more than it would if I had been sitting where I could actually be over it. But that is how you are going to do your stitches. And then once you get that done, you're just going to take your pattern and cut it out in whatever preferred shape that you want for the back and for the front. Okay, so I have finished my embroidery and I've done my coloring of the little gift. So I'm going to take my back fabric and my embroidered and do right sides together. Okay, so when you get your right sides together, you want to line it up on a 1/4 inch seam. And when you're sewing circles, you just want to keep the circle turning on that 1/4 inch seam. So seam align tape is a great tip. If you've never used that, you can get it on Amazon, and it will help you keep that 1/4 inch seam from your needle. So you are going to start and back stitch like always, a couple of stitches. And you are just going to follow the curve of your circle, and each time you need to adjust, just adjust and just continue going in a circle, keeping your edge on that 1/4 inch seam. Again, just adjust it as you need to adjust. You will go all the way around your circle, and you will come back close to the top and leave yourself about maybe an inch or so that you can turn it right side out like we normally do projects, and then you will come back and iron that to seal it with a top stitch. So now I'm getting close to the top here, so I'm going to go ahead and back stitch a couple of stitches. And then I'm going to be ready to flip this right side out. You may want to clip in just a little bit, because anytime you sew on curves or circles, you may get some difficult places that aren't turning very well. So you can just cut little slits into your fabric without cutting into your thread, so that when you get ready to fold it, it'll be a little better to take those curves. And you'll just carefully push that through. Poke out all of those edges. Okay, when you get those edges poked out and you pretty much have your circle here, you want to tuck this in just on those small edges that will line up here. So you're just trying to reshape your circle, just tucking that back in, that 1/4 inch you had. And it doesn't matter where in your circle you choose to do that. I just got to the top of mine, and that's where I was. So just make sure you try to get that curve the way that it's supposed to look. And then you are going to come back and top stitch all the way around the top of this. So when you get ready to do your top stitch, you're just going to do either 1/8 of an inch just along the edge, or you can do something decorative like a blanket stitch, which is what I have. So I'm just going to finish off with a blanket stitch, and I'll show you how that looks compared to a straight top stitch. So you can add a little more of a decorative look if you just have something like a blanket stitch that you use also. That'll add a little bit more to it. Now, you'll notice I cut out the hole at the top where you're going to seal that in. If you are going to use something like a grommet, then you would just use whatever grommet tool you have to put that in there. If you are going to have to put ribbon through an opening that you've cut, then you could also blanket stitch around that opening. You could still do that anyway, or zigzag stitch that opening so that it doesn't come unraveled. So once you decide how you're going to close that up, I actually used a grommet. It will work on thin fabric, but not thick fabric. So you may want to see which kind you need before you do anything with the grommet. So I'm just going to feed through the two ends of the string folded in half, and then just loop that over, and that gives me the little part that will just hang off. And you can use, any kind of cord or ribbon that you like, as thick or as small as you want. You could even tie a bow at the top of it if you wanted. But that's how you make a cute little gift tag. And if you did want to tie a knot at the top, you could even turn that into a little ornament to decorate with somewhere on a tree. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please like, comment, give me some ideas on some things that you would like to see in the future tutorials. I love feedback, and if you're interested in maybe having access to some kits or some patterns that I can create for some things, let me know that in the comments as well. And I will see you back next time.